hoping you'd feel ashamed, but we were hoping that you would be inspired to change a little. Hoping you'd feel ashamed, but we were hoping that you would be inspired to change a little.
And I can see that we are streaming. We are streaming. Welcome, everybody. Я начну на... И мы начали с такого прям момента. Я начну по-русски для всех тех, кто... And I can see that we are streaming. We are streaming. Я начну по-русски для всех тех, кто сейчас к нам присоединяется, либо для тех, кто придет к нам слушать позже. По техническим моментам мы будем говорить в прямом эфире на английском языке. Тем не менее, у нас есть возможность синхронного перевода, который происходит с нами прямо сейчас, но для этого вам нужно зайти к нам в Zoom. Ссылка на Zoom под трансляцией, то есть вам нужно будет вот в этом окошке YouTube внизу посмотреть в описании, и там будет краткая ссылка на Zoom, и вы можете к нам зайти и выбрать здесь русский язык, да, внизу будет такая инструкция, не инструкция, а поле, где можно будет выбрать русский перевод и слушать перевод. Либо, если вы хорошо понимаете английский и следите за разговором, вы можете продолжать слушать нас здесь. Мы постараемся сохранить русский перевод, русскую запись и потом наложить ее, либо выложить ее, чтобы даже те, кто не знает английский, потом все равно может послушать, о чем же рассказывали нам режиссеры, все, что происходило и с режиссерами, и с фильмом, и с героями, и любые другие вопросы, которые мы будем собирать от вас тоже. Поэтому еще раз краткая, самая серьезная инструкция. Если вы хотите послушать наш разговор на русском языке, нажимайте ссылку внизу в описании и приходите к нам в Zoom, мы вас пустим, пригреем, и вы выберете язык, на котором вы хотите слушать, и, может быть, даже задать вопрос. И с этим я перейду на английский язык. I will switch to English, and I will introduce our guests. Ацуко and Debbi Li, the filmmakers of the film Microplastic. Sorry, I'm hearing the both ways, and I'm actually curious. What is the correct way, microplastic or microplastic? That's the best beginning, right? And welcome to this, unfortunately, virtual Q&A after your film screenings of your film. Can you unmute yourself? Yes, so you can be like, you can just say hello, and we will like put you. That was a long uncomfortable pause.
No, I'm sorry for the pause. We were waiting for translation. Thank you so much for inviting us to join the Q&A today. We're here from Ацуко and I are both in New York City right now, where the movie was made. And we're very, very honored. This is our first Russian Q&A, our first Russian screening. And we're so thrilled to share the message of these 56 New York City students with Russia, with a Russian audience.
Hi, I'm Ацуко Kirk. I'm also the co-director of Microplastic Madness. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we are thrilled to actually meet you, Russian audience. So thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to this, hearing some questions from Russian audience.
And please ask us whatever you want. You don't have to be polite with us or shy.
That's an unexpected request in the very beginning, but I hope to keep it but polite and loving as much as possible, because what we heard for now, and the film was available, so the film is available throughout the festival. So we expect that part of the audience watched the film already, and part of the audience will watch it later, but like the streaming will remain, and people will be able to watch it after that. So like their weekend is coming, and like we hope that also the people who are busy during the week will be able to watch. But otherwise, what we heard already is really nice comments and really, I don't know how to say, like it's a sweet thing that we heard, and it's really nice to be able to talk to you and like to tell also like to forward them to you as well. That's why it's always nice to bring filmmakers to the festival, and not to receive compliments on the behalf of the festival. But I want to start with like general questions that I'm sure you heard from every other festival. First is your way. Your journey, like what were you doing before this film? I mean, were you always making films about plastic with children as characters? Like, how did you come to making this film?
Thank you, Anastasia. That's such a good question. We are a part of an organization, a nonprofit environmental education organization called Cafeteria Culture. So we go into schools in New York City and we pilot new kinds of interdisciplinary curriculum, lessons that are about climate change, zero waste, plastic. We use science, we use the arts, we use history, intercultural connections. We try everything. And we also bring cameras into the classroom with us. So media and video production is a big part of our work, because we're very, very dedicated to giving a voice to youth, and in particular, youth of color and lower income youth in New York City. So it wasn't like we decided, oh, let's make a movie about microplastics. We were actually in this school in Brooklyn, and we received a grant, actually a government grant for this project. And once we were in there, and we met these incredible students and the community, we knew we had to make this film. Ацуко?
Yeah, so a minute we walked into the school, we felt the air of caring in that school, that not only teachers and staff, but like kitchen staff or custodians, everybody really is caring kids, and then kids know that they're being cared, so that the community tie was very strong. And then also, the kids, their version of storytelling was very, very inspiring. So then, we already had cameras, and then, like filming, but like, well, this story needs to go out this classroom, go out this building, and then, let everybody know that how great these students are doing. So then, oh, Debbi Li, let's make a movie. And that's what I said.
And Ацуко and I, even though we have been running this organization, Cafeteria Culture, teaching environmental education and really cutting edge environmental education, taking kids to New York City Council to testify. Right now, as we speak, some of our students are testifying with City Council at the same time. And so that's a big part of what we do. And it's I get chills thinking about it myself. I'm still so excited by that, because I didn't go to City Hall until I was, middle age. I think how amazing that children should know that the government here belongs to them, that City Hall is theirs as well. And as you see, and that's portrayed in the movie. But Ацуко and I, before we did this, we both worked in different kinds of production. And we didn't give up our careers. We moved on, and we were so moved by the possibilities of what we could do to change things in New York City schools. but we decided at a certain point, well, we both know about making movies. We should teach students about making movies. We were already documenting a lot of our work, which was not easy. We have to get permission from the students, from the Department of Education. It's very complicated. So we were set to go to make this movie, really.
And also, we wanted this movie to be a recipe for change so that, if you start, your action can grow to class-wide or school-wide or city-wide. So if you start. So that was sort of like an underlining message of the movie.
If you start, could you talk a little bit more about that? Because that seemed to be the most important thing, like movie as an agent of change. Like if you start taking care of plastic, or maybe it's you're talking about even bigger thing.
Well, that actually you can learn. Yes, you can start by reducing plastic. You could start with just that, but actually the steps that you take can be applied to many, many kinds of change. And that's what we're finding with our students now that we've been doing this program for some years, even the students in the movie, that they may have worked on plastic pollution, but they might be focused on other social or environmental issues. They learn how to do that change. And what we like about the movie as a recipe for change or directions, how you start, is that in this example, the students started right in their own classroom, right with their teachers, with their own school, with their principal, the directors of the school. And so that's also interesting. And sometimes we don't think about that. We think about change on such a grand scale. But what we have learned from our students and partnering with our students is that sometimes you can pilot or test something that's very small, and that it can be amplified or it can be scaled up just because you tried it in one place, that people need to see what change looks like. So in this case, just doing plastic-free lunch day in one school was enough for us and our students to help convince the directors of the school food program in New York City. They feed 1.1 million students. It's the second largest food service in the United States. And our one initiative in this school was enough for them, I mean, with some encouragement and pushing, but it was enough for them to then say, okay, we want to try this with the whole city now.
So this project runs in the whole city now?
Not yet. We were supposed to, we were supposed to do that last May, and then when the pandemic happened,
right. I forgot about that.
There have been horrible things and also some good things, like us being here with you on Zoom is incredible. But we're hoping still to do this next year, and even so, school food is playing a big role in New York City of feeding hungry people. There's many hungry families right now. And we're even beginning with our students right now to look at the plastic in the meals that they're sharing during the pandemic. And that all came out of the work of these students in the movie.
But was it just like to understand where the ignite happened? Like, was it students coming to their teachers and saying, there is something wrong about all this plastic around? Or was it teachers saying, like, pay attention a little bit more to the plastic? Like, where was this first sparkle?
Well, we in our education, we come in and we don't tell students, this is what you should think. It's a discovery. It's a journey. It's their journey. And that's what we tried to portray in the movie, that they use what we call citizen science or community science, where the community takes part in collecting data, local data, hyper-local data, and they are the experts because it's their neighborhood. Even a scientist coming in from far away who might be brilliant might not know what the students know of their own local knowledge. So they collect this data, then they debate the issues. And you see that in the movie also, where they have a Socratic discussion. So they really have a chance to not only learn about the science, collect their own data, debate, but to formulate their own opinions on the issues before they have the opportunity to take action. Ацуко, do you want to add to that?
Right, so that we are always coming in to be facilitating so that they are the ones actually discovering, coming up with the solutions and their own version of solutions. It could be different in every school. It could be different in every region. So that's how that's the most important part, that they actually use their own data to actually make a design solutions on their own.
So what's the main thing of the coaches, of teachers, to help them to formulate, to analyze, or like what do you see is the main is the main role of teacher then?
As the teachers in the, do you mean like the teachers in the classroom? Or so yes. Well, there are a lot, we partner with the teachers as we partner with the students when we go into a classroom. And our goal is to learn from the teachers when we're there. So they help us to align whatever we're doing with what they are required to teach, right? So we have learning standards in every state across the US. And so they will help us to actually figure out, well, let's say we have a lesson about data collection and we think, wow, we could do a lot with percentages and math, right? So we'll work with a math teacher, for instance, and to help to figure out how we can then form the education so that teachers can actually use it in the classroom, because they're under an enormous amount of pressure to have their students pass the test, have good grades on tests. And so part of what we're doing is not just advocating for environmental change, but we're also advocating for quality environmental education that aligns with things that students need to learn in this century and this era.
Also, what we do is, we're not going into 100 schools to do the program. So we go into, a few schools and then try really cutting edge new things, and then trying to make a tool for other teachers can run the program on their own, so we don't have to go into 100 schools. So that's what we do.
And it's not a great like business model, but we're not a business. Like our goal is to try things out and fail. Like we have to, sometimes things don't work. And then we try it again and again. And we try it maybe in a different school. And we go into schools typically that have a lot of their own challenges. We work with students. Many of our students live in public housing. Many live in poverty. Many live in shelters. I think often you think of New York City and you think of Midtown Manhattan and that there's so much money here, but there's also a lot of poverty here. And for us, we feel that if we can pilot this education with the students that we're working with, and they can learn how to be change makers, that's one of the most important things of our time, that they can apply that to whatever issues they're faced with in their lives.
That sounds fantastic, actually. And it's also very inspiring, because if they are children initiating their own research, it seems like there is such a huge possibility of absolutely unexpected solutions, right? Not something that like we know and we teach them.
And in particular, let's say when we're talking about school food, it's adults who make all these decisions about how the food will be served, what it will be served in. There's all these laws that are good laws, to protect the health of children. But the students are actually the clients. They are the ones who are that are eating this, and we rarely hear their ideas about how to change and improve it. And then we find out that some of the ideas that they practice in their own cafeteria can then be applied, or some of the change can be applied outside in the bigger world in other scenarios. And that's also very, very moving, and they learn that.
Have you actually have you heard already something super unexpected, like very unexpected offer or solution from the child that you were like, oh, like mind-blowing?
Sometimes they're very simple. Like for instance, in the movie, we talk about how New York City students ate school food off of styrofoam trays. So polystyrene, which is a very toxic plastic material to produce, it's not healthy to eat off of, but we didn't know all those things 20 years ago, and we know that now. And we worked with a class. There was one girl similar age in 5th grade who was having a hard time even finishing 5th grade, moving to the next grade academically. And we built paper maquettes, models of what a new plate or new tray could look like. And she just came up with the idea as the user, as the person who eats school food every day, or maybe 3 times a day. She said, the walls, the sides need to be higher because now we have salad. That was a big thing, that we have fresh salad in all schools. And she said, and the salad's always falling off. You walk from the line to the table. It seemed like such a simple thing, right? Her design was incorporated into this new plate that now a half a billion are being used per year in the US. And that was from this 5th grade student who was having a hard time academically.
Oh, wow. That's really inspiring. Ацуко, do you want to add something, or I just didn't?
Yeah, I mean, always kids storytelling and a kids inspiration is so fresh, let's say once we were into a middle school class, and then the first lesson we brought them out to the street with the cameras and observing street litter, right? And then a girl said, this is how we treat our fish. It means she is already thinking this is a justice issue for animals, right? We didn't really teach much. That was really the first lesson we brought him up. So that blew my mind that she can already seeing this is a justice issue. So those are our aha moments, that to be with actual kids in the classroom.
And part of what we do in the classroom is we're there to learn from the students. It's if we come in and we just say, okay, we have our 12 lessons planned, and then we have 12 more, and that's what we're going to do this year. It always changes. It always, no matter how much work we do, and it should, because part of what we're doing in this way of piloting new environmental education is we're hearing what are the issues that are important to the students, or sometimes the teachers, or sometimes their families or their community. And then we interweave those issues into what we're teaching, and they change. This year will certainly be different than last year because of the pandemic.
Yeah, well, see, now it's truly impossible to predict anything. But about together with all this possible aha moment and inspiration from working with children, it's also not so easy, especially as a filmmakers. I mean, I heard from many of my friends who are filmmakers that working with children is a separate skill set. How was it for you? And you had to work with children separately and with the whole group of them. Like, how was it for you? How was it for them? Like, could you talk a little bit about the process?
Yeah, I was in the classroom and with them for every single class and every single activity, and we always come in with the camera and then giving them cameras so that they are part of the filmmaker, like a filmmaking. So that makes a huge difference. So and after a little while, the kids really get used to the camera, and then because I was running a camera all the time, so then they kind of know that there, if some like a child says like a really awesome thing, and then other child, Atsuko, come here, you gotta record this, and like sometimes even teachers are like, Atsuko, come here, like that kind of thing. Sort of like we're making a film together. That was really amazing.
And they truly are the partners in the filmmaking process. And just to give you an idea so you can picture, we made this movie on a very small budget. In fact, when Ацуко first said, oh, let's make a feature documentary I thought, like, there's no way we can do this. And of course, we could not have years ago in film. If we had to produce it in film, it would have cost us too much. But now these days, really, you can. And I tell this story because it's important to inspire other people to tell their own stories. That really, everybody has a device pretty much with a camera on it, and how important it is to share these very local stories. And in this case, we go into the classroom, we're not coming in with lots of cables and big cameras. It's much more intimate. And so the students, they learn very quickly that they are a part of it. And also because they're holding the cameras themselves and they're also documenting with us, that they are part of the process is so important. And I think for them, when they saw the movie in the end, they were shocked, to see, like, oh my gosh, this is like this all came together as a real movie. But that's a part of what the work is that we do also. We have a YouTube channel that has a lot of student-made movies on it. And that's part of the work that we're doing, is that really that our students learn about media production as part of environmental education. So storytelling is a part of what they learn to do to make change.
Also, I was sort of being careful that when the audience, watch the movie, I want everybody to feel like they are in the classroom together with the kids, so that I want to be always close to the kids. And then I told kids to look at the camera, look at the lens, so you are really messaging to the whole world. So those are some of the filmmaking, methods that we chose. But still, the most important thing is they're also all filmmakers for this movie.
Just seeing how you talk about it with these warm smiles is so beautiful. after this process makes me want to do it, even though I'm panically afraid even of the idea to enter the class of like 100 children with a camera and like say, so guys, we're gonna make a movie, like just how it's gonna be. But could I ask like a technical question, because also to make a feature movie, which is, by the way, like incredible, I agree like with what you said before, it's really inspirational, because it's a huge thing, it's a huge project, right? It's not like 5 minutes short, it's a whole feature. We all do have the devices with cameras, but also like the quality of the picture, the quality of the sound especially should be good enough, and the editing should be good, and like everything is like, how did you manage to bring it all together?
Well, we're a team that we're a small team that wears very many hats. So we're lucky that way, that our backgrounds for both Ацуко and I in production before.
Okay.
Ацуko had made documentary films before. She was working with cafeteria culture. I had worked with HBO, family programming. So we had experiences, and I'd done animation before professionally. So we came with these other professional experiences, and we basically did most of the post-production, as we say in English, we say in-house, meaning we did it ourselves. We did it in the same room that we work in and we teach in an after-school program in a community center, a beautiful community center. But we were really lucky that somebody gave us this space to work in. We needed space, and we found a way on a very limited budget. We made the animation ourselves. We built the animation stand ourselves, figuring out how to, we thought like, okay, we have to record sound. We did go to a professional sound recording studio. And when we ran out of money, we went to the public library, and the librarians worked with us. They were so excited to be a part of the process. And we literally were in a community room next to the bathroom where people were flushing the toilet. And every time they flushed the toilet, we stopped and we started again. But we kept our patience, and we thought, okay, this is how we have to do it. And we were able to do it. And, it was a lot of technical work on Atsuko's part, adjusting the sound. It wasn't easy. It took us a lot of time, but we also felt very, very honored and privileged to have this opportunity to share this message. We knew at a certain point how important it would be to share this message. And so we dedicated ourselves and worked really hard. What we didn't know was how far this message would go. We thought, okay, schools in New York City, they'll like this movie. But we had no idea that this would be a message that could really be meaningful in countries across the world where cultures are so different. And that is that's our ultimate post-movie gift, to be able to see that actually that the work that we're doing, that what these children have to say is meaningful all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, we're now talking to the audience in Russia. That's like mind-blowing for us. That was like a dream. And, we were doing the Q&As with India, Qatar, Jordan, Japan.
Yeah, I will
New
hold you
Zealand.
just a little bit here because I want to
Yeah.
ask about the whole distribution of the film
Sure.
thing. I just want to there and also inserting a little bit of questions that we receive, and we have very practical questions. How long did it take to make this movie? And you don't have to give us the numbers, but more or less what was the budget?
So it took three years to
3
make
years.
this movie. So we were with the students for a little more than a year and a half when they were in 4th grade through the end of 5th grade. And then after that, we did expert interviews and animation. Actually, Debbi Li and our lead animator, Daniel, moved every single raindrop frame by frame. Imagine that. And then so it took a while, and then editing, and again sound cleanup and sound editing was tough, and it took a while. But the most challenging through that process was the whole storytelling of the movie, because this issue, plastic pollution issue, was really shifting as actually we were filming, so that there is a new study coming every month, and things are sort of changing quickly. 4 years ago, nobody knew what microplastics are, but now people kind of know about it, and then people kind of know what the problem is, and so that the movie shouldn't be something that gets old in 6 months, right? So that we were very careful to choose how to tell the story, what the elements that's important, and then important that recipe for change part doesn't have the shelf life. So
which is always an issue in making documentary movies, that you don't want it to be outdated. And also very, very important to us was that it should have a strong take action message at the end. And you don't always know that that's going to work out for you. You might start making a movie and then the end of whatever happens in your project isn't as interesting as you thought it would be. We were very, very lucky that the students were actually able to facilitate some amazing changes in New York City so that we had this really exciting ending. But we also, Ацуко and I are both very dedicated to the fact that we didn't want an audience to watch a movie, say, oh, this is terrible, and then go on about your day and do whatever else you were doing, but watch the movie and say, oh, I could do this too. That's the whole thing. And how many great movies there are that don't end like that. And you feel afterwards, great documentaries, you feel like, wow, you're so upset about something and you really don't know what the action is you should take.
But that's just from us, from all the team of the EcoCup Festival and from all the similar festivals around the world, that's all the reason why we organized the festival. So, to be able to bring this kind of movies, because all these I find that all these phenomenon of impact documentaries, the documentaries that inspire you so much that you want to just stand up and go and stand up and change something, because it's so easy not to, right? So it's just great. And then when you organize this kind of festival, you are surrounded with these films and with people who do that, in the characters of these movies, and all these like crazy people just like changing the world right in front of your eyes. This is absolutely incredible. And this is like, let me also connect it to the story of your film. So you made this film, you thought that this is gonna be for New York, and then what happened? Like how, like Qatar, India, I heard, like what happened after that?
Well, one thing that I want to say about the Q&As, and we're interested to hear from the audience too, is that we are learning. So we see a whole new opportunity now, you know, that the movie's finished and it's going around the world, that we're learning about environmental education, what works or what might work in different countries around the world. Is there recycling in countries around the world? Places where you think, you know, that are pristine and beautiful, and you would be sure they had good sustainability laws, and maybe there's no recycling. So all of that is very fascinating, and it's giving us the opportunity to now go, like, really transform, go to the next step with the movie and think about, okay, where can we take this in terms of continuing to learn from our audiences? We want to hear what's happening in Russia. And then also to think about how we can then contribute to bringing the world together, to uniting youth everywhere around the world for a plastic-free future. And we can only do that really by knowing what the issues are, where different cultures and different communities enter into the issue.
But could you tell about all these festival stories? Like, was it the overwhelming interest from the festivals, or were you reaching to the festival? Like, were it screened everywhere during the pandemic year as well? I mean, like, not that easy year to release the film. Like, how was the reception in different countries? Maybe you could also see some differences in receptions. Like, what is the story of your film after it got out from your hands?
Yeah, so we submitted to a lot of festivals at the beginning, and then first couple months we didn't get much tractions, but once we got into one, then somehow it kind of exploded to first all US film festivals. They were all interested, started with mostly children's film festivals and environmental film festivals. But then what we found out was that regular film festival, even not children's film festival or environmental film festivals, they love the
On the
movie.
environmental.
And somehow they draw more audience in a way that, and then they give us support, and then some of them actually had connection to other film festivals and then introduced to other film festivals. Then now sort of word of mouth went out, and the people like a film festival organizers actually found out from other festivals to, and then invited us to join, and we were invited to like a conferences or those things too. So then and this year actually is sort of exploding to international film festivals. Those are some of them are we actually submitted and officially applied, but a lot of them are just like sending emails to us. Hey, we heard about this movie, and then can you send us a screener? And then we send a screener, and then sure enough that they want to invite us to be a part of the festival. So that's what's happening right now. So that's why we have many countries already screened the movie.
And one of the things that's interesting is that there are different entry points that countries come to, like maybe there's no recycling, or maybe there's no environmental education, or maybe there's a lot of environmental education. But one thing that's been very consistent right now, which is fascinating, is that because of the pandemic, there has been an explosion of use of single-use plastics. And that has been a universal message that we have received. We're curious to know how that is in Russia. So whether it's Qatar, whether it's Jordan, whether it's Guatemala, that everywhere there's been this push by the plastics industry that reusables are not safe. And then that combined with a way of people getting their food differently during the pandemic, that it is, we are probably going to find out the number of single-use plastics has probably exploded during this time, which is really terrible. So the message of the movie is even more important now, maybe, than it was even 2 years ago in that sense.
Absolutely, like it's the terrifying topic at the moment. And before we go into that, and actually like talking a little bit about plastic, also one of the question is how your own feelings about microplastic changed after making this film. Like, did you have any like radical changes or not radical?
For myself, I've been passionate for many years. I worked in plastics for many years as a scenic designer. I'm also a cancer patient and was a cancer patient all through making this movie. And I think that some of my reasons I have cancer is connected to environmental reasons and the work that I did around plastics. So for me, the movie just amplified a dedication to making sure that people understand that there is a connection between plastics and not just environmental health and wildlife health, but also human health. Even though we might not have the proof yet, people always say, well, what's the proof? That you can't use science without proof. But there's enough theory and there's enough information out there that we know we should be concerned. And hoping also, for me, it became also like a hope to inspire others to do more data collection, whether it's community science or the top toxicologist in Russia, to be inspired to do more research so that we understand the magnitude of this plastic pollution crisis and we take action before it's too late. And we also see the connection to the climate crisis. And Ацуко and I worked really hard in the storytelling to make sure that it was a student's voice, but also that that connection was very, very clear and that we had experts explaining that so that this message could really be something that could travel far and travel within time as well and call for immediate action.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And this is not a easy story. Thank you for sharing. I mean, like with us. I want to, because you asked me, we had just the audience, we had a little meeting before. And you asked that one of the most interesting things for you is also finding out what is happening in all these countries where you screen the film, what is happening with plastic. And thank God I have my colleagues who can answer it better than me. It's Natalia Paramonova. She's a co-founder of the festival, but also one of the most prominent environmental journalists in Russia. So like it's all coming together, and she will now like make a little bit crash course about plastic in Russia. Natasha.
У меня есть звук. Вот. Огромное спасибо, что...
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Спасибо, что вы здесь с нами, и этот чудесный фильм про микропластик. И я надеюсь, очень поможет просвещению в школах, потому что пока у нас в школах и в детских садах дети учатся мусор разделять. Проблема микропластика может взорвать им мозг, мне кажется, совершенно.
Just a second, Natasha. You have the translation, right? Yeah, perfect.
Okay. И Надо сказать, проблема микропластика действительно, у нас есть группы в России, которые говорят о том, что микропластик – это сложно, его надо как-то вылавливать и что-то с ним делать. Но действительно Всемирная организация здравоохранения не признает микропластик как проблему, ну, в смысле, не признает ее влияние на здоровье человека. Пока влияние на здоровье человека не доказано, мы, в общем-то, ничего с ним делать не будем. Если бы коронавирус не был для нас проблемой, он бы жил себе прекрасно, а микропластик – это такая параллельная вселенная, которая существует, и пока никто этим не занимается. Поэтому очень интересно посмотреть в фильме, как дети пытаются, вообще ставят эту проблему как некоторую проблему, потому что когда, я боюсь, мы узнаем о том, что это загрязнение проблема, будет уже очень поздно или очень сложно что-то сделать. Вторая аудитория, которая более подготовленная и сильнее влияет на микропластик, это, наверное, потребители косметики. Потому что какое-то время я работала как журналист в журнале, который занимается косметическими средствами. И вот там все точно знают, что входит в состав косметики. И однозначно идет голосование против частиц микропластика внутри. И, насколько я знаю, производители с этим уже работают, отказываясь от микропластика. То же самое касается бутилированной воды. Это, надо сказать, не я такая продвинутая, а вот моя коллега по фестивалю приехала ко мне домой и увидела бутылку с водой и сказала, что там микропластика больше, чем если я поставлю фильтр. Но это действительно не доходит. Мне кажется, что в чистой воде не может быть ничего грязного. И пока мы не видим проблему, мы думаем, что ее нет. Вот, поэтому, конечно, есть проблема, но в России это не проблема первого ряда, хотя вот, к счастью, наш фестиваль, он не только работает на объединение такого горизонтального сообщества, но многие из тех, кто принимает решения, тоже смотрят фестиваль, либо участвуют в нем со своими частными проектами, и действительно есть, у нас есть такая организация «Росводресурсы». И это организация, которая заведует чистотой наших водоемов и рек. И вот они озабочены проблемой микропластика тоже, и пока это на уровне такого их вдохновения для того, чтобы вода была действительно чистой, а не на уровне государственной программы. Но тем не менее, если люди внутри системы понимают, о чем идет речь, то рано или поздно что-то может поменяться. Я прям... Доклад окончен.
Программно.
Спасибо вам большое.
Спасибо, Наташа.
Thank you, Natalia. That's great to hear all that.
Welcome.
That's incredible, really. I wish that I could read some of what you've written over the years, and the microbeads problem. We didn't get into that. We made a choice not to in the movie because in the US also we finally have a law passed that's been in effect now to take most of the microbeads out of body care products and cosmetics. There's still a lot of other chemicals to be concerned about, but so we didn't focus on that. And we do find that a lot of people are really shocked first by the information about our fabrics, our microfibers, and all the plastics coming as a result of our clothing and need to have fast fashion and wash our clothes all the time. So that was also a bit of a, not a surprise, but in the beginning, there in the US in particular, a lot of people wanted to know more about microfibers, just interesting. But fascinating to hear about Russia, and I hope that the movie can also help to inspire education, because education, of course, brings about change.
Yes.
Yeah, we would.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I would love to hear. Are schools in session? They're remote learning right now. I just wanna know if Natalia can answer.
Да, я могу сказать. Дети, я не могу сказать, наверное, про всю страну, я могу сказать про Москву. Дети до 4 класса ходят в школу, а старше 4 класса сидят дома и находятся на удаленке. Безусловно, для каких-то регионов России, где сложно, удаленных и где нет постоянного интернета, я слышала истории, как мамы ловят домашнее задание с телефоном на высокой горе, потому что надо продолжить обучение. Вот. Ну, я не знаю, надеюсь, мы продержимся. Это будут дети коронавируса, образование времен коронавируса, что-то такое.
Все продолжили выжидающе смотреть на Наташу. Thank you, Natasha. I'm just mindful about time because we will have one more session tonight, and I want to give a 5 minutes break to our great translator who is working with us all this time while we're here relaxingly talk. Is it correct that you have like a forum on your website? So like we can welcome, we can invite people to share maybe stories about plastic or like maybe some questions with you from Russia, so we can share your website, or yeah, exactly, we can share that and give a message that if somebody found it inspiring, I want to share some comments, because what you showed is incredible. Citizen science for children-led projects, whole school projects about plastic, and maybe now all the country or all the city school projects about that. This kind of project as symbols of change and the agent of change, bringing children to the city hall, which is incredible. Also, thank you so much for all these absolutely inspiring stories, and for making the film, even though part of it had to be done in the public library. Oh my God.
Also, we want to say that if there are schools in Moscow, in Russia, that want to show the movie, they can register to host their own screening. There's schools all over the world now hosting screenings, and we try to interact in the classroom if we can. Sometimes we partner with another environmental organization in Japan or New Zealand or other countries, so that they can help to facilitate with us. And also we have curriculum. It's not in Russian yet, but we would be inspired by you to have it translated in Russian. And if there's enough of an audience in Russia, then we would look to find funding to translate, to dub the movie into Russian. That would be a dream come true for us.
This is important enough to tell it in Russian. Дорогие зрители, если вы школа и вы хотите показать этот фильм, вы можете на сайте, есть специальная форма. Все сайты мы поделимся в наших социальных сетях. Есть специальная форма, которую можно заполнить, и вы можете организовать показ фильма у себя в школе. Сейчас показы идут в школах по всей Америке, например, в других странах тоже. И в том числе, если создатели фильма почувствуют и увидят, что есть большой интерес к фильму, они и мы, и все одновременно постараются найти возможности, поддержку для того, чтобы фильм был не просто переведен на русский с субтитрами, но и дублирован. Да? Фильмы с дубляжом проще смотреть, там, особенно детям и подросткам. Поэтому теперь все зависит от нас, если мы покажем, что действительно много школ, много организаций хотят это сделать, может быть, у этого фильма будет еще большая история в России. На этом, Ацуко, Дебби Ли, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your film. I'm sure we will be in touch. And let's see where this journey leads us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And we really do believe that, sometimes this bringing people together, uniting youth on an issue like this can bring us all of us together. We're so grateful. Thank you. Thank you so much for hosting our movie and the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you so much. We hope we can make a Russian first subtitles version, and hopefully the dub version. That would be wonderful.
Let's say bye. See you. Have a good work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Конец трансляции, да? Жду подтверждения от Мии. Смотрю, что происходит, пока мы еще на трансляции.
Да, привет, Настя, это Петр снова. Я тут к вам вклинился из аэропорта, с удовольствием послушал все, что сегодня происходило, то, что смог расслышать. Скажи, пожалуйста, у нас разве не будет сейчас еще одна сессия с Лиз?
Будет, да. Да.
Нужно ли тогда останавливать трансляцию? Мне кажется, не нужно, достаточно, скажем так.
Мы прямо сейчас там идем, в смысле, чтобы...
Логично будет все-таки ее оставить, потому что на сегодня у нас подготовлены вот эти вот окна трансляции, на сайт вставлены вот эти окна. Если мы это остановим, нам будет сложно это опять запустить.
Окей, ну тогда просто, чтобы мы не... можно там, не знаю, нас заглушить.
Okay, so then we'll just leave them.
Thank you so much. And Andrei, thank you so much for your great translation. Thank you, Anastasia. Thank you all. And let's be in touch if you have ideas to continue to partner. We would love to. And good luck with the rest of the festival. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Mia.
Bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Настя, я предлагаю, если есть, сейчас пошарить картиночку следующего спикера. Мне кажется,
мы уже, наверное, начнем. Просто так получилось. Liz, hi. I'm coming to you in a second. Это просто к тому, чтобы уже поздно мы все радостно говорили со зрителями.
Ну да, чтобы не сидеть в тишине.
Да, в этой штуке. Я думаю, что мы можем, собственно говоря, сразу начать. Liz, hi.
Hi, it says that I can't start my video because the host has stopped it.
Ага, Мия, можешь раз видеодить?
Работаю над этим.
Liz, just a second.
Okay.
Liz, please try again.
Yes, we can see the video, and we can start. Мия, ничего не изменилось, да? Мы говорим по-английски, продолжаем.
Да, все верно.
Liz, just a second. I will start in Russian, and then I will move to English with you.
Okay.
Great. And I can see that everything is on. Всем еще раз добрый вечер. Мы продолжаем. У нас сегодня такой кино Q&A марафон. Мы оставим его и в этом виде тоже, и разрежем пополам и выложим на наших YouTube-каналах с переводом, надеюсь, в том числе. Для тех, кто продолжает смотреть, мы продолжаем обсуждать кино, продолжаем обсуждать программу нашего фестиваля. И сегодня это фильм «Веломамы». Сразу технический момент. Мы будем говорить на английском с режиссером, с Лиз, на английском языке без перевода в Ютубе. Если вы хотите присоединиться на перевод, если вы хотите слышать русский перевод, в описании Ютуба есть ссылка. Заходите на эту ссылку, это ссылка на Zoom. И вы заходите к нам, прям вот мы вас приглашаем сюда к нам в Zoom, и здесь вы можете выбрать, когда вы заходите, вы можете выбрать возможность русского перевода. Внизу будет вот такая вот, вы уже, наверное, видели многие, кто проводит в Zoom столько же часов, сколько и вне Zoom, или даже больше, там есть такой кружочек глобус, на него можно нажать и выбрать русский перевод. Поэтому для всех тех, кто в Ютубе и сейчас смутится, что мы вдруг все пришли на английский, приходите к нам в Zoom, у нас тут есть невероятные возможности переводов. На этом я перейду снова на английский. And welcome Liz Cunning, the creator, the filmmaker of the film Motherload, one of my, I'll be absolutely, can I actually say it? I can say it, right? Like, it's one of my favorite films in the program. And like, I was so excited when I first saw it, and I was just basically going around and suggesting it to everybody because the topic and the way it's told and everything behind the story was so interesting and exciting. So I'm really, really happy that you're here with me. Do you hear me well? Is everything
Yeah, you froze for a moment, but mostly it's good.
Okay, great. Welcome. Hi. How are you?
Doing all right. You know, things are not great in the United States right now, but we're safe and healthy, so it's good.
True. Around the world as well. I am only happy that we are somehow in very different formats managing to continue to screen films, to organize festival, to test all these strange online format for impact the films. How it's been so far? Your film been screened, right, in many different festivals online, I guess, this year.
Yeah, it looked like we were going to have a really exciting summer of community screenings, especially because in the United States, May is Bike Month, and so like around April, March, things were really ramping up as far as our calendar, and then most of those things got canceled, but a lot of people turned them into virtual events, and so then I've been able to do things like this with people all over the world, which I suppose is the silver lining of the whole thing for me.
Exactly, and we will see how it's going. It's a big test, also how it's all gonna be with engagement with audience, with message, how it's. But you've been organizing film festival yourself, is it right? What do you think about all these online festival things?
I did. I only did it for a year. I will say that I feel like I've learned. So my film premiered at Docklands, which is a new film festival put on by the people that do the Mill Valley Film Festival, which is actually pretty well known in this country. And there was a panel where directors, really established directors who mostly made like $1 million plus features that were just gorgeous, were on the panel, and they were talking about how frustrating it was to make a beautiful film and then realize that a month after people see it on Netflix or whatever, nothing has really changed. And I was just shaking my head thinking, my film, from the very first trailer that I made in 2011, I was hearing from people who said, we saw this and we started questioning our ownership of 2 cars, and we eventually turned one into a bike. And, so ever since then, and I think that's because of the, it's so accessible, because regular people are in it, regular people help make it, and now regular people are helping to get it screened, all over. So there's been a level of investment in the project from regular people. It's very been grassroots. And I think that with this model of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding and then sort of crowd distributing, you really can increase your impact. So yeah, that's been the even though I didn't get into Sundance and I didn't get into Southwest, and I've been able to really have a measurable impact.
Could you actually talk a little bit more about that? Because it's a fantastic part of the story of the film, from the crowdfunding, how the film was funded, maybe like your journey through it, to crowd distribution, right? Like, could you talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. So as is clear in the film, I was really tired when my kids were little, and I was very creatively frustrated. So when I wanted to make a film, and when I discovered the cargo bike, and I discovered how much energy there was around it all over the world by people who discover it, I mean, it really, like, people immediately are converted into evangelists once they bring this bicycle into their life, especially if they have young kids. And I thought, could I channel that energy? Could I get them to help me make a project? And it just, from then on, from the moment I introduced the first trailer and asked people to send me video, I felt like I was being pulled along, by like a pack of wild horses or something, because everybody was so engaged immediately. And it was a lot of pressure. How am I going to bring all this stuff into a piece that doesn't just appeal to bike people? They can have, where's the universal theme in this? And that really took me a long time to figure out. And it was 3 years later that I decided to ask people for money and did the Kickstarter campaign. And part of what was amazing about that was a lot of companies got involved. I think because this is sort of a niche topic, right? Cargo bikes, a lot of people don't even know they exist. Companies saw that I was doing this, and they said we had got to get in on that. So they donated product. A lot of people, they donated cargo bikes, like $5,000 to $6,000 cargo bikes. They donated child seats and gear to help people, you know, with their, and so backers were able to invest in my film and get a bike at the same time, or, you know, other gear that helped them out. So that was, the community support there was amazing. And then we were going to just do festivals for a year once I finally finished the film, but there was so much pressure from people. They'd been waiting for so long for me to finish. We decided to do community screenings at the same time. And it's been probably mostly community screenings, you know.
Could I stop you for a second? Our interpreter says that he doesn't hear a microphone well. Andrei, could you comment?
This is not the computer that I usually, because my kids are doing online school. Usually I don't have Q&As during their school time. So it could be because our internet, I mean, the kids are online, they're doing school online. Does it sound like an internet connection thing or a microphone thing?
Andrei?
I've never had trouble with my microphone before, so.
Настя, я очень хорошо слышу английскую речь. Может быть, дело в невыбранном языке?
Which language? Какой язык нужно выбрать?
English.
Could you choose English, please?
Oh, where do you do that?
Please, high speed invisible assistance.
Got it. I think
click on the round icon with globus to choose language, and please choose English.
I did that.
Did you see it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Thanks support team. As we started straight away, sorry for missing this super important detail. Please keep on. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah.
Настя, все ли хорошо?
Louder.
Oh, it seems Настя.
How does this sound? Is this better?
No, Настя is here.
Does this sound okay?
Настя, did you switch your language too?
А я сейчас слушала, да, что там происходит.
Okay.
Sorry, I've never had trouble with this before. Audio setting.
Okay, so what's the issue? I can hear clearly, and I believe now she talked with Andrei.
Is this better? This louder? Okay, great. No problem.
Great. Could it work? Do you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Sorry for interrupting. Murphy law is a powerful thing, and we had to give our our respect to it. Please keep up.
So I was just talking about, I forget, where was I?
The crowdfunding part.
Okay, yeah. That, you know, so like I said, companies got involved and that made a huge difference. That allowed me to raise a lot more money. And then when it came time to distribute the film, you know, it was a bit frustrating that festivals largely require, some of them, really big entry fees, and most of them do not offer any compensation. And I was just shocked by that. And after spending 8 years on a film, without any real income. That was, so community screenings have allowed people to bring the film to their home, and then a lot of them have really embraced it as like an event and a way to celebrate bikes in their town. Some people have like gone on, done bike canvassing. In other words, like they ride around their neighborhood to tell people about the screening. Some people made their own video promotional piece, to promote the event in their town. And they often, before COVID, designed their own group ride to the event, and then like a panel discussion of local cycling parents and advocates, that kind of thing. And this was all just regular people doing this.
And what about the crowd distribution? What is happening now? Could you tell a little bit more about that?
So it's really kind of the same, and regular people are basically, they can buy a screening license through my website, and they get a link to stream the film on Vimeo that they can share with registered attendees of their event. I usually give them about like 48 hours to watch the film, and usually they're followed by a Q&A sort of like this, and all the people that have signed up for their event get the link to the Zoom link, and the same thing, although it allows the host to pick panelists from anywhere in the world, right? Like you have.
Where the film was screened, which communities, which countries, maybe some interesting stories from there that like really warmed your heart, something that you would like to share?
One of my favorite Q&As was put on by Oxfordshire Livable Streets in the United Kingdom, and they had as a panelist this woman who was the leader of the Waltham Forest Borough Council, which was a town in England that they now call the Mini Holland. So she's a politician who really took a strong stand as far as making her town bicycle friendly, and she experienced a lot of backlash and resistance, but it's really worked out now. They really have like a little version of the Netherlands in Britain, and she just had they had brilliant ideas. One of them I thought was so great was in Q&As, I often get questions, and I'm not an infrastructure expert by any stretch, but people can't help themselves, and they ask things about like, what about if I live in a city and I have a flat that's 2 flights up, 2 flights of stairs, and how do I get my cargo bike? How do I store it? And so there, where they have old buildings in this British city, she implemented what she calls a bike hanger, which are these storage things that take up 1 car space, and they thought there would just be a handful of them, and now like every block in her town has their own little like storage for secure bike storage. Yeah, that's a big deal. Seems like a silly thing, but it's a pretty big deal.
No, actually, yesterday we talked with the guy who built his own cargo bike in Moscow, and one of the questions was like, but where do you keep it? And he actually, because he done it, it is very exciting also because he wanted to make it very affordable and easy. So he basically done from the old bike himself. So he took the old bike and then he cut it, and then he like got like this cargo thing, and he just keeps it, like he lives in the apartment building and just next to the entrance to this apartment building, because he says nobody would take something like this because it's obviously like handmade, but it's right, it's a question if it's a really sustainable solution or not. But he told us very inspiringly how he also did it for his children. He has 2 children. So he made this cargo bike to be able to drive his kids around. And he is doing this in Moscow, in this crazy megapolis of almost 20 million people. And he's almost only one. I have no idea how it's possible to do, because when we were like discussing to bring this film to Russia, the physical festival would be in Moscow, right? Like we would screen this film in Moscow. What online possibility gave us is to show this film to the rest of the cities and in Russia. And this is hopefully very inspiring moment because infrastructure is different everywhere, right? We have like Russia is huge and we have parts which are, let's say, flatter or parts which are we don't have bike infrastructure anywhere, but I don't know, somewhere it could be, you know, more inspiring than immediately start hardcore in in the city like Moscow. But do you know if they are in American cities, in New York or San Francisco? Hardly can imagine that. But like, what about the big cities? Do you hear stories from them?
About bike storage or anything else?
No, cargo bikes, general usage of cargo bikes.
Oh, yeah. Well, in San Francisco, they've really taken off, particularly during shutdown. I think, in the pandemic, the bicycles have just been bought off the shelves. It's hard to find them. And I've heard from a woman who has a lot of friends who are parents of small children in San Francisco, and they really were asking her a lot about where they can get a cargo bike because they're looking for a way to take their kid out in the city that's safe. You know, and cycling, it's really easy to maintain social distance on a bicycle. It's really the perfect solution to the situation we're in. So there've been loads and loads of families getting cargo bikes in San Francisco. And I think that's probably true in a lot of American cities right now.
Interesting. Even despite like all the hills, electro cargo bikes?
Yeah, I mean, electric motors have come so far now that, I mean, that many hills steeper than my hill. I mean, it's really, and so yeah, electric motor will allow you to take your kids anywhere in San Francisco.
Oh, wow, incredible.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts about like the next steps? I mean, like you made, I don't know if there are many films about cargo bikes. I haven't seen many. Let's call it one of the few and one of the most inspiring. So like you've done this thing. What is next? Do you want to keep promoting the cargo bikes movement with the help of the film, with the help of something else? Like what are your next huge plans?
So I am a filmmaker before I am a bicycle advocate, right? I love bikes and I will always advocate for them in some way, but I think my next film will not be about bikes. And what I really wanted was to create a tool, right, for other advocates to use and something that told this story in an engaging way that could transcend the bicycle. You know, it took me forever. And I hope I succeeded. Sometimes I still feel like it's really treated like a bike film, even though I think of it as more than a bike film, right? I mean, but my next film, I'm thinking it will be about women. It'll be, I don't know. It's an idea that I'm still working on, but it occurred to me at some point that my daughter is going to go through puberty at the same time I go through menopause. And these are both transitions that are thought of as somewhat tumultuous and degrading. And why is that? Why, I have twins. I have a boy and a girl. And statistically, my daughter is supposed to experience, a real, fall in her academic performance, in her athletic performance, in her confidence level. Like that's what the studies say, as compared to boys. And so I thought it would be really interesting to look at why all of this is true. And at the same time, I feel like as a society, we are reevaluating women's roles, particularly in the public sphere. I mean, we just elected our first female VP of color in the United States. And so I do think that I would love to be able to draw a connection to like how long it's taking us to really adopt feminine values. And is there a connection there to our reluctance to really deal with climate change? Like I think of, and I'm not sure, maybe that's taking the whole thing too far, but I would like to draw a parallel there.
That's very interesting what you said. I'm smiling just because I very recently had the conversation with a friend of mine who was going through menopause herself, and she said that for her it's a license to cut the bullshit, like stop wasting time. And
yeah. I mean, that's what it should be. I don't think all women experience it that way. I think some women feel invisible once they become a woman of a certain age, you know. And you think about it, men at that age, that's when they're really coming into their power. That's when people take them the most seriously of any time in their lives. And it's not always true for women. So, but you know, Kamala Harris is probably postmenopausal. So I think that's brilliant.
But I feel that it's very logical step also for the next film, because I called it, I know it's a super simplification, but I also don't think that it's exclusively a bike film that you've done. For me, it was somehow, I hope it's not like a etiquette or too much simplification, like a little bit of like feminist manifesto, because it's also, telling so much about the story and the women, and just generally of all these things under surface, which are like, as soon as you touch it just with your cargo bike, suddenly this iceberg come out. Was it something similar that you had in mind?
Yes, I love taking a topic and then seeing what connections I can draw, you know, philosophically, historically, even like scientifically. I love that kind of storytelling. And there was a man from the transition, you know, about the transition network and transition towns, who saw the film in Barcelona, and he called it an eco-feminist film. Do you know the history of ecofeminism? Yes, so it ties feminism to the larger struggle of, you know, to fighting for oppressed people, you know, basically anyone or anything that has suffered under the patriarchy, including the planet, right? So I love that. That's perfect in that. And I think my next film would be an eco-feminist film, you know.
Again. Sorry for that. It's not middle of the day, but it's still it's evening here, but still a lot of things are happening. I also find it very very logical what like the connection with patriarchy is as well, even though the feminism has not particularly great reputation in Russia, and we always, like, everybody are very careful always to talk about it. It has negative and aggressive connotation, so it's very the conversation about it is like very careful, because I personally don't always find it aggressive, and it's not necessarily have to be aggressive, and I especially like the ecofeminism connection. So as a programmer, it was also one of the reasons for me to choose this film.
I'm glad you did.
And I just looking a little bit at the question. What we heard yesterday from, and I think it's one of the most shocking thing in the film, is this aggression towards the bike drivers, or women bike drivers, and what is happening with them, and like the police calls and like all these things. Because yesterday we asked, he's the man with the bikes, with the bike with two children. And we asked if he experienced something the same, and he said he never did. His experience was exclusively positive. Everybody was just stopping only to say how crazy and sweet and nice what he's doing. How huge the problem that you are showed in film? Was it just some, like little parts that you just wanted to say that this is extreme, which is also happening, or is it a norm to have this kind of aggression?
I think that, the example of, Kate Mundy, the woman who, there's that long scene where that man really used some horrible language directed at her. That's really the extreme. But almost every woman that I was in touch with in the making of the film who rides with their children has experienced something like that. I mean, a milder version of it. Even in Fairfax, this is a bike-loving town, and I've never had anyone, curse at me, but I certainly in the middle of traffic had a woman, pull up and roll down her window and say, "Don't you realize, how dangerous that is?" And things like that. Mom shaming is big here. I was just having a back and forth with them. I published a review of the film on my Facebook group, and it has a beautiful photo of Emily Finch, from the film, who carries 6 children on her cargo bike, and all her children are helmeted and she's not. And the first comment was, "I love this, but can we all pitch in and get her a proper helmet so she can convey the proper image and protect her proper brain?" And my response was, "Thank you, but I think the solution here is safe infrastructure so that people can wear regular clothes and have, feel the wind in their hair like they do in the Netherlands and Denmark." And the conversation that after that was just, it's, the helmet thing, and his questioning of her judgment, right? She's made a decision. She moved her family to Portland because they do have good infrastructure there. And she's an adult woman, and she decided not to wear. Felt like he was under the guise of saying he was worried about her and we should all, pitch in and get her a helmet. I really felt like it was sort of anti-woman. He was just not allowing for the idea that she can make her own decisions about her own body, And so I think it's sometimes subtle like that, but I think there's something about a woman who is bold enough to say, "I believe this is safe. I can control this bicycle. I can take care of my children. I know what I'm doing, and I'm strong in my body, and I'm adept with this machine." Some people, that rubs them the wrong way, and they get anxious and they say things, it's still an issue. That's the real feminist core of the film, is bodily autonomy. Like we can make our own decisions. We can take up public space and do things that are questioning, the status quo, the norms that we're supposed to live by. We're allowed to do that, and it should be respected. Yeah.
Is it the real message of the film for you? When you said that you want this film to be a tool for a change?
Yeah, I think the film is to a large degree about cultural change and what it takes, and the small acts. I love that quote that I found that I used at the end of the film from Rebecca Solnit about how you do what you can do. What you do does is not up to you. It's a big deal for people to just every day get up and say, "Whatever, I'm going to go to the store, in my flip-flops and my skirt to get groceries. I'm not going to look like other cyclists. I'm not going to certainly be in an automobile." I mean, and for other people to see that every day, that's a big deal. That is part of how cultural change happens. And to keep doing that even after somebody yells at you, and keep doing that even after you have maybe a slightly uncomfortable interaction with a car, just to keep doing it. And then more people join you, and then you start to feel like a real badass. And that is empowering and liberating,
Very nice. Is it a big community of cargo bike moms in US? Is it like whole country, or it's more spread to cities?
I think it's probably, it's mostly in cities, but there's definitely a lot on the West Coast, in the, the Northwest. I would say there's a lot there's a lot of cycling and there's a lot of cargo bike moms. But it's true in New York and in Boston and Philadelphia. I mean, you know, we're still a small, as I said in the film, there's still a relatively small number of people that ride bikes in the United States, if you really look at it, you know, and yeah, they're very concentrated in cities. But it's changing. And I just got an award. The Better Cities Film Festival just gave the film the Hero Award, because from their perspective, the film is not just a film, but it's part of a movement, right? That the filmmaking became part of this movement. And there's a lot of women that have seen the film and then decided to do this. There was another article just published telling a woman telling this very story. Yeah. You know, she saw that she was a cyclist already, but she didn't know anything about cargo bikes. And it was very interesting to read that she, you know, she had a bike, she had bags on her bike, she had carried her one child, you know, with a trailer, but she said, this is a car replacement. This is not just a bike with some accessories. This is a bike that lets you do what you would like to do with your car. And that is a different thing.
But is it only, I cannot ask as it's like it is a main argument in Russia. Is it only in like, let's say, warm California? What about much, much colder places?
Well, you know, there's two scenes in the film of people riding in snow, and one of them in a blizzard. That is one of my favorite scenes of Brent in Buffalo, New York. That was one of the most intense winters they've ever had in Buffalo, New York, and they're known for their winters. So yeah, you have to have all the right gear to do it comfortably. But as they say in the Netherlands, there's no such thing as bad weather, only bad gear or something like that. You know, there's no such thing as bad weather, only not being appropriately prepared for the weather. So, and then, I mean, I love the bit of Emily Finch in Portland talking about how the rainy season, you know, there would be days when she would hate her bike and she would dread getting on it. And then 10 minutes into their ride, she's just ecstatic. And I know that feeling so well. And it's partly why comfort is another theme in the film, where there's so many ways in which doing things that we generally think of as uncomfortable can end up making us feel alive. And to such a great extent, we just avoid them these days, you know, but challenging your body, especially in interactions with nature, can really enhance your life.
It's I ask still about the winter, because it's always seemed that this one crazy person, you know, biking through blizzard in in New York City. But like, have you met a lot of people who actually say yes? Like, I mean, we can do it through cold. You also can replace the car even in the cold areas.
You know, there are in Minneapolis is a very snowy place, and that's like the bike capital right now of the United States. I think they have the largest number of cyclists per capita, I believe. So it takes sometimes what's it called, like spikes on your tires. There's all kinds of things. There's mittens that like warm your hands as you're, you know, they have something in them where they actually warm your hands while you're, because your hand, that's the thing that gets the coldest, you know, and your feet. You know, it's more challenging, but it absolutely can be done.
Mittens that warm your hands. I would want it outside of the bike as well. Just coming back to film a little bit. What was the most difficult thing in making the movie, and what was the most joyful thing in making the movie?
The most difficult thing was absolutely that I was a short form editor. You know, my professional career was in editing things that were very short. And I did work on other people's documentary, but usually just a portion of it. So to learn how to create a narrative arc that would sustain an audience like over 90 minutes, not to mention the fact that I was trying to tie together all these stories, much of which I didn't shoot. So to find the theme, I mean, I'm about to publish a whole bunch of deleted scenes on Vimeo on demand because I had way too much material. I mean, I had hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. So in the beginning, I latched onto Ross Evans' story and like of going to Nicaragua as a 19-year-old and designing the long tail extension for the cargo bikes, you know, to help them fight poverty. And I figured that I would my character would introduce the story, and then we'd go to Ross and we'd follow him, and then through the creation of Extra Cycle and all the cultural backlash they experienced and the challenges. And so I had like a 2-hour rough cut, which I showed at a feedback screening in San Francisco. And it was very painful that pretty much everybody that was there said, look, we don't want to hear about this technology from a bunch of white men. I mean, it's just more of what the bike world looks like, right? It's just a bunch of white men geeking out about technology. I mean, yes, the design of the cargo bike is important, but that's not really the story. So they said, we want to hear this from you. And we want you to hold our hand through the story. And so it was unfortunate because there was a lot of work that I ended up having to take out of the film. But on the other hand, it gave me permission to really go deep into my story. And then that gave me the freedom to really be philosophical and you know, talk about things, you know, tie things together, because I could just do it with my own writing and my own voiceover. So that was the hardest thing. And the most joyful thing, I mean, in the making or the completion of it, I think going to I was an artist at the Napa Film Festival, so my kids got to come like stay in this this inn where they were hosting it, and they got to go to screenings. And I think they sacrificed a lot of me in the making of the film. I was very distracted, and so for them to see that persistence has paid off and that my film's having a positive impact is that's really important to me. Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry. This is an obligatory part of forgetting at some moment to unmute yourself. Thanks for sharing. It's a really nice and seem truly joyful moment. We have a couple of more questions, which I already will be like almost blitzing you. During the crowdfunding, this very Russian question, I feel, were you accepting money from everybody, or did you have some ethical line? For example, I don't take money from oil companies or somebody connected to the oil company.
I don't think I was approached by any oil companies. You know, I don't know. Barbara and Joel Grover from Portland, they own a cargo bike shop in Portland called Splendid Cycles. They once said to me, you know, bikes are a great social filter, right? You meet amazing people through bikes. But cargo bikes are like an incredible social filter. So I feel like there's not a lot of bad people interested in cargo bikes. I didn't feel like I needed to do a lot of filtering. The people who donated to my Kickstarter definitely over the years kicked my ass, and some of them got really angry because it took me so long to finish the film. And that was hard, but it was also probably necessary. You know, I don't know if that really answers the question, but I don't. Yeah.
But it is. I know. I'm conscious. Also, thank you for answer. But it's a huge question, and it's basically leading right to the like all this ethical part of whom all the sustainable social and ecological projects can accept money from or not. And there's a huge debate, and I consciously don't want to dive over there.
Yeah, I just don't think there was anybody with an agenda. I mean, I don't see I don't see what anybody from that sphere would hope to get out of investing in my film. It's not, yeah.
True, but it's a great answer about like the social filter. That is, the cargo is already in itself as a social filter. And for your next project, do you think about anything similar? Do you think about crowdfunding? Do you think already it's going to be crowdfunded and crowd distributed, or do you think to opt for some other way?
The marketing and distribution part of the film was really exciting for a long time. I would say I'm getting a little tired of it and a little ready to move back to creativity, so I would love to have more help with that the second time around. I would definitely consider crowdfunding and crowdsourcing for my next film. I think if I could connect to a lot of women who are, who would like to tell their story of going through menopause, and as well women who have a daughter who is going through puberty, I think that could work out great. It's hard to imagine a crowdfunding campaign right now, and the economy is so, I don't think a lot of people are giving away money right now, but yeah, I mean, my film hasn't been embraced by the film world, I would say, the way I would like it to. So I applied for a lot of grants for Motherload, and I don't know if I would do that again, because I don't think my form of filmmaking is really what the film world is looking for.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think that, like I was saying in the beginning, the panel, the Docklands panel, where all those directors who had really well-funded, like gorgeous, seamless, perfectly looking films. Those are the films that festivals want to show for the most part. And I think that my film, right off the bat, like you see that footage that people shot with their phone, like, on their bike in the very beginning. And I think a lot of people don't get past that, maybe.
Huh.
I think that the same thing that makes my film impactful in terms of social change, because people relate to it immediately, that is not the thing. I think that the film world is more about beautiful, pristine storytelling. So, in other words, I don't know if I could secure funding from those sources, unfortunately.
We will see. I'm very curious, and it's interesting if it's gonna be the crowdsourcing as well. Like, let me say it in Russian, also, like, to a little bit concluding our conversation. Следующий фильм, как вы слышали, следующий фильм Лиз хочет посвятить, возможно, здесь планы сейчас тому, что она будет проходить через менопаузу, ее дочь будет проходить через подростковое взросление одновременно. И планы в том числе это, как и в предыдущем фильме, собрать то, что происходит с другими людьми, чтобы они снимали какие-то вещи и присылали ей. И поэтому, если вы хотите, например, присоединиться к будущему фильму Лиз, о котором, надеюсь, мы в том числе тоже будем писать, можно оставаться либо с ней через ее сайт Motherload, или там найти ее в других местах тоже, и, может быть, прислать свои истории в том числе. И следите за сайтом фильма и за нашим тоже. Можно подать заявку на организацию показа фильма. Как вы видите на сайте, ее тоже есть много разных вариантов, как это может быть сделано. А пока я хочу поблагодарить Лиз за то, что она присоединилась к нам сегодня на обсуждение фильма, который все еще можно посмотреть до 22 числа включительно. На сайте Cool Connection можно зарегистрироваться и получить ссылку на просмотр фильма. После этого можно посмотреть наше обсуждение, можно написать нам, что вы думаете про этот фильм, можно написать нам, можно написать Лиз, можно написать Карго Папе, с которым мы разговаривали вчера. В это небольшое сообщество карго-велосипедистов в Москве. Можно самому построить карго-велосипед и ездить там с детьми. Thank you, Liz, so much for joining us and for this exciting talk. We are hoping to stay in touch, and if we have something interesting coming from Russia about your film, we will, or about the message, or about your future film as well, we will definitely get in touch with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Мы потихоньку будем уходить из эфира.
Все, выходим, да?
Да, выходим.